And welcome back to Zanpakuto Creation Series. Today's Zanpakuto Creation suggestion comes to us from Cameron Clovis, who asked the question, what is Moose from Naruto's Pokemon team? That's a different video. Zanpakuto. Now, Mui, I don't know if it's Mu or Mui. I think it's Mui because I believe there's like a little dash over the U, so I think it's Mui. But Mui was the second Tsuchikage of the Village in the Stone. And he was a power, like, we don't see a lot of this guy in the series. He was brought back as Edo Tensei. That's how we first got introduced to them. And then we occasionally saw him back in a flashback. But he was, I believe, he was the one who taught Onoiki the dust release. If I'm not mistaken, he was the creator of the dust release. I'm going to just double check that fact right now. But I think that is the case. I would definitely know he was Onoiki's teacher. I know that. Due to his ability, which left neither a physical form nor a detectable signature chakra, he was renowned as the non-person, basically, because he had some unusual abilities. He was a sensor type, having displayed the ability to sense chakra, and furthermore, basically hide his presence, more or less. Capable of conjuring quickly, he could avoid techniques that even other Kage found difficult to evade, even from his blind side. He also had some odd ninjutsu, including being able to literally split himself into duplicates to help escape a lethal blow, but at the cost of reducing his power by half. He was also physically strong enough to lift massive rocks off his body, even with only half his power. He was impossible to detect by normal means. So when he was alive, he also was very skilled in kenjutsu. But a lot of things that what a lot of people know him for is he was one of the few shinobi in history who could wield all 5 elements of natural transformation. He was even one of fewer who was capable of using a kekatoka, which was not a kekkei is 2 elements together, whereas a kekatoka or toita was a combination of 3 elements, a more powerful version of it. In particular, he possessed the dust release, which allowed him to combine fire, earth, and wind to reduce opponents to nothing more than mere dust, allowing them to be destroyed down on the molecular level. His capacity was such that it even compelled the Shinobi Alliance to summon Onoiki to battle his former teacher. Now, this does not say admittedly that he was the inventor of it. I do have to backtrack on that. But as far as we know, let me just see if anyone else knew dust release besides Onoiki and Mu. Okay, so in the anime, there are 2 other individuals who knew it. Someone named Ku, who, let's see here, he was a synthetic human created by a partial clone of Onoiki. Was this in the Boruto shit? Yeah, that was Boruto. So no one cares about that. And then there was Kako, who, again, that's Boruto. Oh, God. Well, maybe wait. Hold on. Is this Boruto? Wait. Yes. Damn it. It was Boruto. Shit. So, I mean, while we have no proof that Mui was the one who actually created the Kekitoka dust release, it does make sense. But I digress. I mean, what is the Zanpakuto guy? Well, he's a very intelligent individual. He's not a Kenpachi, a Renji, an Ikaku kind of guy. But he is he's not, I liken him to someone kind of like a Byakuya. Or possibly even closer to a Shunsui. Very clever, very intelligent, having ways of getting out of certain scenarios. So, maybe not quite like an Urahara, who is so definitely a Keto type, but definitely someone who could be considered more like a Byakuya, somewhere between a Byakuya and a Shunsui type character. But ultimately, what I decided was not a Keto type. What I decided for this guy, first off, he has a standard katana. Get that out of the way. It's an elemental type. Its release would be Ashes to Ashes. And its name would be Dying Phoenix. Its Bankai would be Immortal Phoenix Altar. Now, which would translate to, I got 2 translations because Google Translate. And I think I like this one better. Hinshi no Hoho, which would be the Shikai. The other option was Shindiro Fenkukuso, or Fenkiso. I like Hinshi no Ho'o. So ashes to ashes. Hinshi no ho'o. I like that a bit more. And then the Bankai can be one of two things. It can be Fumetsu Fenkusu Aruto, or Fumetsu no Ho'o Arato, which again is roughly translating to Immortal Phoenix Altar. The spirit of the Zanpakuto. Now, the spirit of the Zanpakuto basically takes the form of a older gentleman. Not a old man, but a guy like a world-weary guy. And as he continues to use his Zanpakuto, the gentleman's appearance changes. He's always wearing a dark ash gray cloak, and he's in a constant state of growing older and older and older until he activates the Bankai, which is where the big part of the Phoenix part of this comes into play. And he basically bursts if you were to visit him in there, he'd see him burst into flames when he activates the Bankai in his inner world, and then be reborn as a young child again. And then anytime he revisits him, basically anytime he visits him in Ishikai, he's constantly seeing a different form of him. And his age doesn't change until he activates his Bankai, which basically resets him. But what does this Zanpakuto look like? What does it do? In terms of its Shikai, it really doesn't change that much. Most elemental types don't really change that much, from what we can tell. Now there's, at least from their Shikai. Now there is, we have a couple elementals to look over from this as well. We have Hyorimaru, which we know does gain a little chain with the moon crescent thing on there. I think it gets a little longer too, but that's about it. That's all we got for that. Ryujin Jika doesn't change his form. Gonryo Maru does not change his form going into or change his form at all. Even going into Bankai doesn't change his form. Yeah, Ryujin Jika doesn't really change his form except it looks burnt and everything like that. Hyorimaru doesn't change his form like that, and that's all the elementals on Zanpakuto that's like the main ones we have. There are a couple other ones. We know Hyorimaru's Hinamori's Tobayume is a fire type, and it does change its form quite a bit. Same with Nejibana from Kai and Shiba. So we do know that they can change form. Here is one of the things where the katana, I think, just grows a bit longer, but it starts to just glow. It glows like almost not a white hot, but like an orangey red, like just a blade, like a piece of metal that just came out of a forge, and it glows red hot. But now, what this Zanpakuto actually does, though, it's not a fire type Zanpakuto, at least not in the general term. It is an ash type Zanpakuto. I heard a great thing from I know. I want to give the guy the proper shot because I love watching. So, Mr. Tomo 2304. He's a Bleach YouTuber. I love watching his stuff. And if you've never watched him or you're not subscribed to him, he will do a far better job at a lot of these videos than I ever would. But he did a theory video at one point about what Ishin Kurosaki's Zanpakuto is, and he did a great theory about maybe it's like the only smoke type Zanpakuto when it goes into Bankai, because maybe the fact that his wife told him he looked cool when he smoked, it was ingrained in his soul. So I like that. We don't have an ash type Zanpakuto though, and you might say, well, what about Hinako? Hinako is not an ash type Zanpakuto. The blade turns into ash, or an ash-like substance, but it's not an ash-type Zanpakuto. It's not elemental. It's basically just a different version of Byakuya's Zenbon-Zakura, because the ash is just blades. It's just particles of blades. If they're not superheated like ash would be, nothing like that. Now, if we ever see Rangiku's Bankai, then maybe we can argue that statement more. But here we have a blade that's superheated, and when it's heated to the point similar to Ryujin Jika, but nowhere near with the same effect radius, where it basically strikes things, and as long as it's he can enhance the heat even further by momentum, movement, wind and air can superheat stuff further. He just starts to he just starts carving things up and turning them into ash. Now, quickly, the counter to this would be anything with water, any sort of coolant would slow this process down, plus a higher level of Ryatsu. If Mui went against Ryujin Jika, for example, in theory, he could actually go physically toe-to-toe with it, but then all of Ryujin Jika's other abilities come into play. But if he went against someone like a Yamamoto, an Ichibei, an Aizen, a Kenpachi, who have God knows how massive Ryatsu reserves, spiritual pressure reserves, then he wouldn't be reducing any of their physical attacks to ash, at least not immediately anyway. So yeah, and then the whole idea is once he's started to create ash, he's now manipulating this superheated ash. And he's manipulating it pretty much any way you would manipulate an element, for attacks, for defense, for wacky shenanigans. For wacky shenanigans. You could see him wrapping his. I could see a really cool scenario where he's been striking the ground a lot, creating ash while he is attacking, and now he's just got these spinning circles of ash just wrapped around him in a defensive barrier that come out and strike the opponent. And again, unlike say Heineko, which is just blades in like an ash form, this would be a superheated like ash. So it would not just burn, or like it would not just like have physical damage because of just the sheer amount of matter moving at high speeds. It would also have a scalding burn damage as well. The Bankai would essentially be the Bankai is one of those things where it's kind of like a build-up Bankai, where not only would there be a set amount of power the Bankai would normally have, but any of the ash that he has created in its fight with his Shikai would go towards the effect of this Bankai as well. This would be something similar to Zenbon Zakura Kageyoshi, where he strikes the ground, activates Bankai, a giant mass of the ground is just obliterated, and out from in his sword returns to its normal form, and out from the ashes, a giant phoenix of burning ash. And I mean like red hot ash. Like, even though it's gray, it's not like the gray dust like look to it, but it would also be like you'd see fire and flame still in there, appears. And it's basically just used for it has the manipulative effects of, or excuse me, it can be manipulated to the effect of any, to any effect, really. It can be used as a sentient attack dog, defensive barrier. The Phoenix could be transferred back into the blade, and then, and then Mui could use it like a Hyorimaru thing, where he's actually wearing like ash armor. Or he could just transfer it and make a giant sword blade with the Phoenix, but it's still got like the Phoenix's face transfer. The Phoenix has all these abilities, and they could have one final attack where all the ash superheats in one final go to incinerate the enemy as it crashes down upon him. This would be an extremely versatile Zanpakuto. And it's a Zanpakuto that we have never seen a Zanpakuto like this per se. I don't think. I actually really like. Now, maybe this isn't the right Zanpakuto for this type of character, admittedly. But I like the idea that while it's not ash is kind of dust in many ways, it's just a different version of Dust Race. And while we don't know that he was the inventor of it, there's some implications we can take that he was, and we can have that whole he created something so powerful imparted into his soul, and you have his Ash Zanpakuto. Now, like I said, the blade, for instance, the weaknesses would include anyone with greater Ryatsu, obviously. Bleach is always a Ryatsu fight. But beyond that, Liquid would actually, despite the fact that, especially with the Bankai, the superheated nature of the Zanpakuto would be a problem for Liquids, it would not be a complete stopgap. Because while in the Shikai, while the blade is superheated, it might be able to evaporate some amounts of water. Enough water or ice would definitely super cool it and definitely hurt this Zanpakuto. And Ash, while having so many good abilities, is still just superheated dust in many ways. If you've ever gotten Ash wet, you know it just turns into mud, basically. And it's no longer Ash at that point. So he wouldn't be able. In theory, yes, like he's now manipulating his muddy Ash, but I don't see that happening. So in theory, if you were to get a powerful enough natural counter to heat against the Bankai, you could just shut the Bankai down. So as powerful as this Zanpakuto is, it is not infallible by any stretch of the means. Honestly, the only Bankais we've seen that I might arguably say are close to infallible are Zaka no Tachi, and the only weakness is it's so strong it will destroy everything. that's how you know you're almost infallible, is when your only weakness is you're too strong. But you have that. Zenbun Zachary has Kageyoshi has counters. Hyorinmaru's true power, Daigyonin Hyorinmaru's true power, in theory could have some counters, so it's not infallible, but it's hard to get to that full power. I'm just going off every Bankai I know off the top of my head. Haka no Togame, that one, that was definitely got issues to it. That's nowhere near infallible. Mayuri's is technically infallible at that moment, but even against Pernida, when he thought he had it down, he didn't. So, yeah, I wouldn't say, nope, Mayuri's is not infallible. Kenpachi certainly is not. We guessed, we know Ishin's isn't, even though we never seen it. Urahara's is interesting. I don't know if I'd say that's infallible, but that's a potential infallible one, just because of all the things you can do with it. Ichigo's is not infallible. Renji's is not. Shunsui's is very powerful, but still not infallible. In fact, it's actually got a pretty bad drawbacks on it. From what we can tell, it's possible you may actually have to give your life sometimes with that Zanpakuto if you're not careful. I'm literally just, one of Hana's, as far as we can tell, was not infallible. Gin's was pretty powerful, but not infallible. Soifon's certainly not infallible. We've never seen Yoruichi's, nor have we seen Love's. Rose's was not infallible, nor was Kensei's. Shuhei's is not infallible. Shinzi's is not infallible. So, yeah, I mean, with the exception of, Ichibe's was not infallible. But with the exception of Ryujin Jika, Zaka no Tachi, yeah, there is no real infallible Zanpakuto in terms of power. And even then, it still had a drawback of it's going to destroy everything. And if you love the things around you, that is a problem. So, either way, this is the Zanpakuto I've created for Mui. Let me know if you like this Zanpakuto. And hey, think of it this way. When I do run out of the Naruto Zanpakuto videos to do, which won't be for God knows how long, for years and years and years, I can always fall back on these fake ones I created. So there is that. Until then, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you folks later.